Hello my lovelies, let's kick off our stenciling techniques with really super simple ones. I'm sure you've seen loads of times on YouTube, and it's great for beginners, and it's great to have in our indexing as a prompt as well. So grab yourself a stencil or two if you want to do a couple of different ones on your page. Anything at all, something that you like. Something I would recommend something without too many flimsy bits, unless you're really comfortable with that, because we're going to be wiping somewhat roughly. You don't want to break off these bits unless, like I said, unless you're confident and you've done it before, that sort of thing. But yeah, just grab something you like. I'm going to start with some green and yellow. No real reason. I had this lime green out, and I did fancy it again, and it dries quite dark, so I'm adding a little bit of yellow, and I also like a little bit of a mottled look, but it really doesn't matter. So I'm using a sponge to apply. I know we're used to brushes, but I love applying with a sponge. Really makes your paint go a long way. You know, for backgrounds, you don't need a lot. You can really cake it on with brushes, even with a brayer. There we go. Super easy, and that's covered. And I'm going to let that dry. Okay, nice and dry. Going in with my second colour. Where is it? So it's just a magenta and white that I'm mixing to get a nice pink. And I want a bit of pizzazz in this one. I want it to really stand out, so I'm not going to go too soft. Might need a little more magenta. But any two colours, it really doesn't matter. I think if it sort of stands out a bit, then you can see the technique a little bit clearer for yourself. Okay, so doing again, just rough mixing. And I mean, I am taking a chance a bit because I do use gouache. I could reactivate, but my paint is quite dry. And I don't know, I've been working with it for years, so I sort of get the hang of it. But if you're doing acrylic, then absolutely fine. And if you haven't done gouache before, I probably wouldn't recommend to do this technique with your first gouache experience. And before it dries, I'm going to grab this larger one. So obviously I don't want my paint to be drying. So possible notes would be, don't let paint dry. And take the first sort of layer off just to make sure it's coming off. A fresh bit of wet wipe. And like I said, I've used gouache, so I am taking a chance here not to be taking the green off as well. I do like working on the wild side. I'm not sure what's happened there. Fine. So the amount you're taking off, it's up to you. You can make it really grungy, you can make it, you know, really stand out and be really precise. It's totally up to you. And for your card, remember, thinking in terms of your card, you could do a little bit of each. You can get really precise on one half of, what will be one half of the card, and then stay a little bit grungy on the other part, so then you can see both effects. Oops. Okay, that comes out yummy. And now I'm going to do text because I love my text. And I'm going to make use of this old one a bit, get a bit of it off. So you can see that we sort of go in a bit rough, and if you've chosen a stencil with lots of little bits, there might be like here with a W, I've got to be careful there. But yeah, if you choose a stencil with all these little delicate bits, it could be disastrous for your poor stencil. Don't want that, do we? Okay, I'm getting a fresh bit now. Oh, The very thing I said to be careful on the W. I forgot. So for this one, I'm going in grungy. I'm going to do a few exact. Not exact, but you know, take a lot of paint off and then a few grungy bits. And that will be really nice on my card. So I think in terms of index card size now, I've done this so much. I'm just thinking, oh, there's a size. So yeah, this is a fun look as well. Keeping in mind as well that your stencil will pull up paint. It just depends how sticky it is, how wet it is, how much paint you've got on. So there. I mean, how easy is that? But it's just fun. And the great thing about the brushing on, or if you braid it on quite thinly, is you've just not used a lot of paint. And that's really great to, you know, make your paint go further. But also if this is just a background and you're going to just be layering and painting, and yeah, you don't necessarily want to thicken it up. Super easy. The wet wipe technique. Well, that's one wet wipe technique anyway. So yeah, let's get it indexed when it's dry. Okay, got myself an index card that I've got nothing on, and because I'm going to cover an area completely, I might as well cover bits with all the writing on it. And I know that's roughly, I mean, I could do it at the front if I want to be absolutely sure what I'm grabbing. Say around there. And if you've not done this before, you might have noticed immediately, or you might want to see side by side, how different this looks than if, say, I painted this pink and then stenciled green paint. It's just a completely different look. And obviously it depends how precise you are with it and how thorough you are with it, but you get this lovely mottled grungy look if you like the grungy look. But overall, it is just a different look. It's just completely different. The thickness of the paint that you can't really, not that you can't stop. I mean, you can make it, you know, thinner, but there's just a certain thickness that comes with dabbing paint on top through a stencil, which of course will just give a completely different look. Now I've cut this out precisely. I don't normally do that. I wasn't thinking while I was talking. But I'm just going to finish off now. I might as well. I've done it. Normally what I do is I trim. I let it be a little bit larger than needed, and then I trim, so then I'm just making sure that I'm covering the whole thing. But I've done it now, so it's fine. It's practically perfect. It's just annoying if you cut too much and then you don't have enough paper to cover your card. It's absolutely fine. I'm going to cover my card because the paper is just more flimsy, and I can see that I'm covering it. And there we go. And doesn't that look nice as well with the text? That is very cool. So I've got a little bit of excess, which is great. I get to trim it off. Okay, so I've got one of my digital printouts, which I keep a little stack of ready. All the members will get these digital printouts. Can't speak today. Okay, let's go. Lovely, perfect fit. Done. Let that dry just a second before I start writing on it. As far as technique names, always use what makes sense to you. The technique might have a very specific name that somebody who invented it calls it, so by all means use that, but also use what makes sense to you and will sort of recall it in your mind. So for me, it's wet wipe reveal. That's what makes sense to me. You can use wet wipe removal, or I think there's a name that it gets called online. I don't know. This is what makes sense to me. So supplies is paint, stencil, wet wipe. That's it. I could be more specific and say gouache paint or acrylic paint. So I'm differentiating it from watercolor. It's up to you what makes sense. I've got all the method written all the way down here. I can start, you know, a little higher up if I feel there's a lot more to say. I think it's a very simple technique, so I don't think I'm going to say very much. And the method is apply layer of paint, let dry thoroughly, apply second layer of paint while wet, place stencil, wet wipe away paint, remove stencil. Probably don't have to say that, but you know. Okay, so that's the method. I could add myself now just in writing, note, do not let second layer dry before wet wipe. That's clear enough for me. So that's just something, you know, that when you go and read this, you just go, oh yes, 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 make sure to do this quickly, you know, and once you've done this technique, you'll know it. But sometimes you haven't done it for a long time. It's just nice to have that there. And of course, doesn't matter how many times you do it, it stays as a beautiful reminder and prompt in your rolARTdex. Yay! See you next one.